My husband was in a car accident and is now in the ICU fighting for his life. The doctor told me to go pay the bill, so I took the savings card we'd been scrimping and saving on for 10 years. There should have been 850,000 yuan in that account. I rushed to make the payment, but the payment kiosk showed a balance of just 636 yuan. I froze in place, then laughed. I told the doctor, let him die. We can't afford the treatment. 01. The antiseptic smell in the hospital corridor was so thick it felt like it couldn't be dispersed, seeping into the nostrils and jarring every nerve. The harsh white light hit my face, and I could feel the color draining from my cheeks bit by bit. Family of the patient. Chen Hao surgery requires an upfront payment of 300,000. The subsequent treatment costs will also be very high, so please be prepared. The doctor in the white coat wore a blank expression. His voice as cold and mechanical as a machine, repeating the same lines every day. I nodded and mechanically pulled the bank card out of my bag. I know this card like the back of my hand. One corner of the card has worn thin and faded over time from being kept in the same spot in the wallet for years. The password is our wedding anniversary, a sequence of numbers I once thought would be etched into my bones. Chen Hao and I have been together since college, and we've been married for 10 years now. To put down roots in this city, we've had to pinch every penny until it squeaks. The 850,000 in this card represents 10 years of our youth and sweat. I took a deep breath, my fingertips trembling slightly as I slid the card into the payment machine slot. Enter password. Confirmed. The number that flashed on the screen made my blood run cold. Available balance, $6.36. I stared at that number for a good 10 seconds, as if I didn't recognize these simple digits. Time stretched into infinity at that moment. The surrounding din, the footsteps, the cries, all of it vanished. The world was reduced to just me, this cold machine, and the number on the screen that mocked my 10 years of youth with utter contempt. Absurd. A profound sense of absurdity washed over me. I suddenly started laughing. First, my lips curled up involuntarily, then a low, muffled chuckle escaped from deep in my chest, and soon after, the laughter grew louder and louder, impossible to contain. In this corridor filled with sorrow and despair, my laughter stood out jarringly, painfully loud. People around me turned to stare, their eyes filled with strange looks, as if I were some lunatic. Maybe I really am crazy. I reached up and wiped my face hard, not knowing if the tears were from laughter or something else. I turned and walked back to the doctor. Step by step, he looked at me with a hint of confusion and wariness in his eyes. I stretched my lips into a smile, unnervingly calm, and said to him clearly, "Doctor, stop the treatment. I'm broke." I spoke those two words softly and steadily, as if I had rehearsed them countless times. The doctor was taken aback. Zhang Guifan, the mother-in-law behind him, was also stunned. A few seconds later, Zhang Guifan, like an enraged lioness, charged forward. Smack! A sharp slap landed hard on my left cheek, a burning sting that instantly went numb. "Lin Shu, you poisonous woman, I knew it. I knew you were up to no good. You want to keep all 850,000 for yourself, don't you? That's the Chen family's money. You want your husband dead so you can run off with some other man." Her voice was shrill and piercing, each word like a venom-tipped nail driven deep into my heart. I didn't flinch, nor did I even raise a hand to shield my face. I just stared at her face twisted in anger, and asked clearly, word by word, "Mom, where did you get 850,000?" My question doused her burning anger like a bucket of ice water poured over her head. Zhang Guifan's curses died in her throat. She stared at me, a flicker of barely perceptible panic flashing in her eyes, but that panic was quickly replaced by a deeper, more venomous resentment. "Stop playing dumb with me. The money you and Chen Hao saved up, don't think I don't know about it. I'm telling you, Lin Shu, if anything happens to Chen Hao, you'll be the first one to pay." I looked at her, a flood of uncontrollable images flashing through my mind. I remember walking home for 40 minutes under the scorching summer sun to save a few bus fares, and trudging through the bitter winter, cold until my hands and feet went numb. I remember this coat I'm wearing. It's been 5 years, and the cuffs are frayed and worn. I remember how Chen Hao had a weak stomach, and for 10 years, without fail, I would get up at 4 every morning to simmer a pot of nourishing millet porridge for him. I remember last year, to round up the sum to 850,000, I secretly sold the gold bracelet my mother left me, my only dowry, a treasure I cherished, without telling a soul. That was Chen Hao's life on the line. And mine too. Now that money is gone, my father-in-law and my brother-in-law, Chen Jia, arrived in a hurry right then. The two of them, each looking grimmer than the other, walked right past my loved one who was still fighting for life in the ICU and came straight for me. "Lin Shu, what on earth is wrong with you? My brother is in this state, and you're just going to stand by and do nothing?" Chen Jia jabbed a finger in my face, his spittle practically hitting my skin. My father-in-law, Chen Jiangwo, stood with his hands clasped behind his back, pronouncing judgment in his tone. What sin did our Chen family commit to bring a jinx like you into our home, a husband killer? Not a single one of them asked about Chen Hao's condition. All they ever cared about was that money. I looked at the faces of this family before me. Their bared fangs and brandished claws made them look like a pack of hyenas that had caught the scent of blood. Suddenly, I felt the pain in my face vanish. My heart went numb in front of all of them, the family, the doctor, and every onlooker gathered around. I turned to the doctor once more. My voice was calmer and more resolute than before. That's right, I'm done helping. Whoever has the money can save them. With that, I turned my back on them without another glance, and walked towards the light at the end of the corridor. Behind me echoed the family's hysterical curses, Zhang Guifen's furious wailing, and Chen Jia's venomous maledictions. Lin Shu, you monster, you'll get what's coming to you. Stop right there. I didn't break my stride for a second. My decade, my youth, my love, my devotion, all of it died the moment the balance read 636. Now it's Chen Hao's turn. 02 Back home, I pushed open the door and was met by a familiar scent, a blend of cooking aromas and the faint smell of tobacco from Chen Hao. But today, that same smell just turns my stomach. This apartment, less than 80 square meters, was something I bought outright before marriage with the inheritance from my parents. Over 10 years of marriage, every single piece of furniture in here was something Chen Hao and I hunted down, piece by piece, during sales and promotions. The lamp in the living room, cheap as it was, casts a sickly yellow light that makes the whole place feel oppressive. One corner of the sofa has sagged. It's the spot where I usually sit. The wedding photo hangs on the wall, capturing me with a radiant smile, nestled close to Chen Hao, my eyes brimming with hope for the future. Looking back, that smile was painfully glaring. Like one big joke, I walked over, reached out, took down that annoying wedding photo, and flipped it face down onto the cold floor. Just last night, I had a huge fight with them over a single meal. I didn't get home until 1 a.m., after working overtime, completely exhausted, only to find that my mother-in-law, Zhang Guifan, had given the dinner I'd specifically saved for myself to my 30-year-old brother-in-law, claiming he needed it to nourish his health. When I confronted Chen Hao about it, he just looked annoyed. It's just one meal, is it really that big a deal? My brother's still growing. I glanced at that grown-up baby, nearly 200 pounds, and grease dripping from his mouth, then looked back at my so-called husband. A decade of pent-up rage erupted in that moment. I rushed into the kitchen, yanked open the fridge, and dragged out everything I'd painstakingly bought and stored for a week. Vegetables, meat, eggs, you name it, leaving nothing behind. Tossing it all straight into the trash. Chen Hao was so furious he raised his hand as if to hit me. I grabbed the kitchen knife lying nearby, my eyes blazing, and pointed it at him. Try touching me, just once. He was taken aback by my madness. I sneered at him and said, we're getting a divorce tomorrow. This house is my premarital property. Get the hell out, all of you. Who would have thought that the next day, before we could even make it to the Civil Affairs Bureau, I first received the news of his car accident. Buzz, the vibration of my phone pulled me back from my memories. I picked up my phone and a WeChat Moments notification popped up on the screen. It's my brother-in-law Chen Jia. I clicked, and a 9-grid photo appeared before my eyes. In the photo, Chen Jia and his fiancée, who had recently gotten engaged, were embracing affectionately in a lavishly decorated house, beaming with joy. The caption reads, "Thanks to my brother and sister-in-law, our love nest is finally ready. Honey, from now on, this is our home." The photo is geotagged at Jiangshani Pin, the city's most upscale residential community. I immediately spotted the massive European-style crystal chandelier behind them. That lamp, priced at 30,000, sat in my online shopping cart for 3 whole years. I looked at it countless times, did the math over and over, but in the end, I just couldn't bring myself to buy it. It was simply too expensive. My heart felt a sharp, piercing sting. A dull ache radiated from the numb nerve endings. I exited Moments with a blank expression and opened the mobile banking app. Fingerprint unlock, login, check transaction history. I don't need to go back too far. A glaring transaction record stood out prominently on the first page. Transfer amount, 850,000,000. Payee, Chen Jia. Transfer date, yesterday. The day before Chen Hao was in the car accident. All the speculation has now turned into a cold and brutal reality. The whole family had planned everything in advance. They transferred all our hard-earned money and our very lives to their most beloved younger brother and left me, the outsider, To deal with the hospital's exorbitant bills, the phone rang again at the worst possible moment. The caller ID read mother-in-law. I swiped to answer and stayed silent. On the other end of the line, Jean Guaifen's sobs had quieted considerably, replaced by a tone of command that brooked no argument. Lin Shu, where the hell have you been? The doctor said. Chen Hao's condition is actually improving a bit. Hurry up and figure out a way to raise some money. You're his wife. You can't just abandon him. Scrape together some money. I repeated the words softly, my voice devoid of any discernible emotion. Exactly. You need to go. Now. Borrow from your parents. Borrow from your friends. Even sell the house we're living in if you have to. Whatever it takes. You must save my son. Sell my house. To save her son, said with such righteous conviction, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I couldn't bear to listen anymore. Beep. I hung up the phone right away. Then, I opened my contacts, found mother-in-law, tapped on it, and blocked her. Find father-in-law, tap it, then block. Find Chen Jia, tap, then block. After finishing all of that, I felt like the whole world had gone quiet. Not a single tear fell. They're not worth it, those heartless animals. Calmly, I scrolled through my contacts and found the name I hadn't spoken to in ages, yet had always kept pinned at the top. Suyu, my best friend from university, now a star lawyer at a prestigious firm. The call was answered promptly. Hello, Shushu. Suyu's voice was always so crisp and efficient. I took a deep breath and summoned all my strength to keep my voice steady. Suyu, I need your help, professional assistance. An hour later, Suyu arrived at my place in a whirlwind of urgency. She was dressed in a well-tailored business suit, her long hair neatly pinned up, her gaze sharp and penetrating. When she saw the 850,000 yuan transfer record on my phone, even her normally composed face registered a look of shock and anger. Damn them, she muttered under her breath. This isn't just a simple transfer of marital assets. The amount is way too large, and it happened the day before the accident. The timing is just too suspicious. There's definitely something fishy going on here. I stood by the window, gazing at the leaden sky outside, the city's skyscrapers rising like cold, steel cages. My voice was devoid of any warmth. He'd better die in the hospital. If he's alive, I'll make his life a living hell. Suyu came to my side, looked into my eyes at that cold, burning flame, and without trying to dissuade me, she simply gave a firm, heavy nod. Understood. Let's start with this house. 2. Suyu's capacity for action was beyond anything I had imagined. She practically mobilized every connection and resource at her law firm. The very next afternoon, she called me, her voice tinged with an excitement she couldn't quite contain. Shushu, I've looked up the property information for your brother-in-law's apartment. It's at Jiangshani Pin, a 280 square meter full-floor apartment, paid in full. All of that was within my expectations. But, Suyu's tone shifted, on the property deed, the names listed are Chen Jia and yours, both of you. I was stunned. My name. When did I ever agree to co-own a property with him? Chen Jia. In a flash, I grasped the sinister intent behind their move. If the property title only lists Chen Jia's name, then the 850,000 yuan constitutes a unilateral gift from Chen Hao to him. I can claim this gift is invalid and recover my rightful half. But if my name is on the property deed, the whole situation changes entirely. This ended up becoming the marital home we, as a couple, jointly financed for my brother-in-law. This house then became what we referred to as our joint marital property. They don't just want me to suffer in silence like someone who's eaten bitter herbs without being able to complain. They might even expect me to share the burden of all future expenses related to this mansion, including potential loans down the line. What a brilliant move, cutting the grass at the root. What a clever plan, killing two birds with one stone. Chen Hao, my dear husband, you really have thought of everything. Shushu, don't rush, there's something even more shocking coming. Suyu's voice cut in again, pulling me out of my thoughts. She sent me a document. It was an electronic scan of the purchase contract for that apartment. I opened it and quickly scrolled to the buyer's signature section on the last page. Two names were clearly written there. One, the name Chen Jia written in a bold, flowing script. The other was 3 characters, Lin Shu, written in a clumsy imitation of my handwriting. I don't recognize this signature at all. I never signed this contract. A chill shot from the soles of my feet straight to the crown of my head, freezing my blood in an instant. But the next second, the frozen blood surged back to life, boiling with scalding rage that coursed through every vein and bone in my body. Not only did they steal my money, but they also forged my signature to buy a house for me that I hadn't even seen. This is no longer just a simple family dispute. This is a crime. Suyue, my voice trembled slightly from sheer rage. On the other end of the line, Suyue's eyes seemed to gleam with cunning. Lin Shu, we've won half the battle, forging signatures to carry out large-scale Real estate transactions legally constitutes contract fraud. Yes, scam. I took a deep breath, forcing down the surge of anger and hatred welling up in my chest. This is no time to lose control. I need to stay calm. I need to be rational. Step by step, I will send these shameless bloodsuckers straight to hell. What's the next step? I asked Sue T, my voice now cold and detached. Call the police. Suyu's voice was resolute. Report it as contract fraud. At the same time, we immediately file an objection registration with the housing authority, along with a handwriting analysis request, to freeze any transactions or mortgages on this property first. Let's make sure they never get a single night's peaceful sleep. A vengeful satisfaction welled up inside me. Just then, my phone rang again. It was an unknown number. With the caller ID showing it was from a hospital, I hesitated for a moment, then answered. On the other end of the line, a nurse's urgent voice pleaded, "Is this Lin Shu Chinhouse family member? The patient's condition has suddenly deteriorated. A critical condition notice has been issued. Please come to the hospital immediately." Then another person snatched the phone away. "It's my mother-in-law, Zhang Guifan." She was wailing uncontrollably on the other end of the line, her voice as haunting as an owl at midnight. "Lin Shu, you heartless wretch. Your husband is dying. Are you happy now? Sell the house right now. Go get the money together. I'm begging you. I'll even kneel down for you. Will that work?" Her sobs were filled with despair and terror, yet not a trace of remorse could be found. "She's still thinking about selling my house." I held the phone, listening silently to her wailing, my face devoid of any expression. Only when she was crying so hard she could barely catch her breath did I speak into the receiver, with a calmness that was almost cruel, and say softly, "Oh, then make the funeral arrangements." 3. I hung up the phone without a moment's hesitation. Suyu and I split up to cover more ground. She immediately contacted a handwriting analysis expert she knew and drafted an application to file an objection with the housing authority. Armed with all our marriage certificates, my original ID card, printed bank statements, and the property purchase contract bearing a forged signature, I went straight to the nearest police station. I was met by a young police officer. After hearing my account and examining the evidence I presented, the expression on his face shifted from initial routine detachment to one of growing seriousness and shock. "Are you absolutely certain this signature on the purchase contract is not yours?" he asked, pointing at the scrawled characters for Lin Shu on the document. Seeking my confirmation once more, "I'm certain," I stated firmly. "I can provide any document bearing my signature for comparison. I demand a professional handwriting analysis. The amount involved is 850,000 yuan, and with the current market value of that property added in, it exceeds 10 million. This qualifies as a major contract fraud case." The officer's expression turned serious. "We'll initiate an investigation immediately." It was already dark when I left the police station. The city's neon lights flickered on one by one, like a vast and hazy net. Standing at the entrance of the police station, with the evening breeze on my face, I felt a thrilling sense of control over my own destiny for the very first time. Meanwhile, in the sprawling penthouse atop Building 18 of Jiangshani Pin, the air was filled with laughter and cheerful conversation. Chen Jia and his fiancée, Wang Lily, were hosting a grand housewarming party in their love nest, entertaining a crowd of guests. The room was filled with melodious music, expensive red wine, and the flattering compliments of friends and family. "Look at how well Jia has done for himself, so young, and already bought such a big apartment in Jiangshani Pin. Lily, you're so lucky to have landed such a great catch. With this level of renovation and this prime location, it must have cost at least 10 million, right, Jia? You've really been keeping your success under wraps." Chen Jia, his sizable belly leading the way, beamed with a ruddy complexion. He held his wine glass aloft, basking in the flattery from the crowd. With his arm around Wang Lily's waist, he announced loudly, "All of this is thanks to my brother and sister-in-law's support." My brother said, "I'm his only brother in this life, so what's his is mine." Wang Lily's parents were beaming from ear to ear, as if they could already picture their daughter marrying into a wealthy family and living a glamorous life. Just as the atmosphere reached its peak, the doorbell rang. Thinking there was another guest yet to arrive, Chen Jia stumbled to the door in a drunken haze. Standing at the door were not his friends, but several uniformed police officers with stern expressions, along with 2 suited officials from the housing bureau, holding documents. "Excuse me, are you Mr. Chen Jia?" the officer in charge asked, presenting his identification. The music in the room cut off instantly, and all eyes turned toward the entrance. Half of Chen Jia's drunkenness evaporated. He nodded, somewhat dazed. "Why yes, that's me, officers. What's this about?" We have received a report alleging your involvement in a major contract fraud case involving a substantial sum, Ms. Lin Shu, one of the co-owners of this property, has filed a report with us and submitted an application for an objection registration to the Housing Authority. An official from the Housing Authority stepped forward and handed him a document. Mr. Chen Jia, in accordance with the interim regulations on real estate registration, we are legally placing an objection registration on this property. During this period, all transactions concerning the property, including transfers, mortgages, and any other procedures, are suspended. In simple terms, this property is now frozen. Frozen, those two words hit Chen Jia like a bolt from the blue, leaving him completely stunned on the spot. The relatives and friends in the room were all stunned, whispering and murmuring among themselves, "Fraud, what's going on? I thought his brother and sister-in-law bought it for him. How did fraud get involved?" Wang Lily's face instantly turned from flushed red to deathly pale. Her parents immediately rushed forward, grabbing Chen Jia by the collar and demanding sharply, "Chen Jia, what on earth is going on? Did you swindle this house?" Chen Jia's mind went blank. His only instinct was to pull out his phone and call me. As soon as the call connected, his roar choked with fear came through. "Lin Shu, are you fucking crazy? How dare you call the police? That was my brother's money for my house. He gave it to me willingly." I pressed the speakerphone button so you sat across from me, listening calmly. I let out a barely audible scoff, soft, but clear enough for Chen Jia on the other end of the line to hear every word. "Your brother, sure. Why don't you have him get up from his ICU bed and tell the police himself?" On the other end of the line, Chen Jia was left speechless by my retort. Then, Zhang Guifan snatched the phone away, and her familiar, dramatic wailing burst out again. "Lin Shu, you heartless wretch. Are you trying to drive our whole family to ruin? Chen Hao is still lying in the hospital. If he finds out how you've treated his brother, it'll be the death of him." I slowly lifted the hot water Suyu had poured for me, gently blew on it, and spoke in a calm tone as if we were just discussing the weather today. "Mom, that's not the way to put it. You should be praying to every god you know, hoping he never wakes up. If he does wake up," I paused, then enunciated each word with perfect clarity, "he is the mastermind behind this multi-million-dollar fraud." A dead silence instantly fell on the other end of the line. I could even clearly hear Zhang Guifan's sharp, fearful intake of breath, the sound of someone being choked by terror. They finally realized Lin Shu, was not joking. "I'm here to settle the score with them." 04 The miracle did not happen, but Chen Hao, he didn't die either. 3 days after I refused to pay and blocked the entire family, the hospital called me with Suyu on the line, unable to reach me. They had to contact Suyu through my lawyer's information listed as an emergency contact. The news is that Chen Hao has woken up, however. Due to severe spinal injuries sustained in the car accident and missing the optimal window for surgery, he suffered permanent nerve damage to his lower body. He was paralyzed for life. For the beleaguered Chen family, this news was like grasping a lifeline, and they wept with overwhelming relief in their eyes. Once Chen Hao woke up, I, as his wife, would have no choice but to give in. A paralyzed husband was their most powerful weapon in abducting me. I got a call from Chen Hao right away. I got his number through a nurse. His voice was weak, like an old bellows, but between the lines, it brimmed with unhidden resentment. "Lin Shu, why are you being so cruel?" he gasped, each word forced out with difficulty. "That was my own brother. He was my only brother." I listened quietly without interrupting him. When he finished speaking, I coldly shot back, "What about me, Chen Hao? In your heart, just what am I to you?" That 850,000 was earned with both our lives on the line, not yours alone. My questioning seemed to leave him momentarily speechless. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line, then he switched tactics. He started pulling at heartstrings. Shu, have you forgotten when we first got together? We lived in a basement, sharing a single bowl of instant noodles every night. It was so tough back then, but we made it through. I just wanted Xiao Jia to have a better life, to let mom and dad hold their heads high in front of the relatives. I never meant to leave you behind. I swear, I'll make it up to you 100 times over." His voice trembled with emotion, sounding genuinely heartfelt and filled with regret. 3 days ago, I might have softened, been moved, and forgiven him, but now, those words sounded utterly ironic and sickening to my ears. Compensation. My voice was like an ice-forged blade, thrusting straight into the heart of his hypocritical performance. "With what? With the rest of your paralyzed life, Chen Hao." My words shattered all his pretenses in an instant. From the phone came the shrill, incendiary voice of my mother-in-law, Zhang Guifan. "Lin Shu, have you no conscience at all? Chen Hao is in this state, and you still want to send him to prison. Are you even human? Chen Hao's voice turned firm again, as if delivering an ultimatum. Lin Shu, this is the last time I'm saying this. You, go to the police station right now and withdraw the complaint. As long as you do, we'll stay married. Come take care of me at the hospital, and that apartment my brother owns. It'll be half yours. We'll be a family again and live a good life from now on. Living a good life. I laughed. This time, I really laughed out loud. I laughed until my chest hurt, until tears welled up in my eyes. It's come to this. He's bedridden. His brother is facing prison time, and their whole family is drowning in debt. He's still dreaming his dream of brothers friendly, family joyful. He still has the nerve to expect me, a tool. They'd bled dry, to go back and cater to him, a cripple, and serve his whole family. Even empty promises like put half my name on the house are made so casually. The house bought with my hard-earned money, obtained through forging my signature. You want to split it with me and expect me to be grateful. How absurd, how ridiculous. Chen Hao, I stopped laughing, wiped the tears from the corner of my eyes, and spoke into the phone in a voice, clear and cold, that he had never heard before. We'll see. You in court? Oh, right, I added. As if something had just occurred to me, I'm also going to sue you for adultery. On the other end of the line, Chen Hao's breath hitched. I can just picture the look of shock and horror on his face right now. He probably thought he'd pulled it off flawlessly, that I'd never find out. He was wrong. He didn't just destroy my finances. He destroyed my home. He shattered my last, lingering illusion about love. Less than half an hour after hanging up on Chen Hao, my doorbell rang. Peering through the peephole, I saw a strange woman standing at the door. She looked to be around 30, with elegant makeup and a form-fitting dress that accentuated her curves. In her hand was a designer handbag I'd only seen in magazines. She wore an expression of impatience and agitation. I assumed she was sent by Chen Hao as a messenger to make a show of force or plead on his behalf. Or maybe she was just another mistress showing off her status. I opened the door, stared at her with a blank expression, and waited for her to speak. To my surprise, she looked me up and down with a gaze that held a trace of undisguised disdain and scrutiny, and her first words were, "So you're Lin Shu?" I nodded. She frowned, her tone sharp as a whip. "When is Chen Hao going to pay back the 200,000 he owes me?" I was stunned. He owes her 200,000. This woman, Li Na, is Chen Hao's colleague and also his mistress. She seemed utterly oblivious to her role as the other woman, or perhaps, in her eyes, a plainly dressed, makeup-free hag like me wasn't even worthy of being her competition. She sat on my sofa, crossed her legs, pulled a phone from her designer bag, opened the photo gallery and WeChat chat history, and shoved it right in my face. "See for yourself." I see it. I came across all sorts of intimate photos of the two of them, some taken at fancy restaurants, others on beach vacations, and even a few in a hotel room. In the photo, Chen Hao was smiling with such fondness, a look he had never shown me before. I saw their chat history for the past 3 years. It's been filled with blatant flirting and sweet nothings. Chen Hao told her that he had long lost feelings for me, that country bumpkin, and that divorce was only a matter of time. He promised to buy her a red BMW Mini. He called her baby and his little minx, and in his contacts, my name is always listed coldly as Lin Shu. What stung the most were the endless lines of transfer records, 520, 1314, red envelopes carrying these suggestive numbers have never stopped coming. There are also several large transfers, 10,000, 30,000, 50,000. I quickly did the math in my head. Over the past 3 years, Chen Hao had transferred money from our joint account to this woman. Bit by bit, the total came to no less than 300,000. 300,000. To save money, I wouldn't even buy a single piece of clothing that cost more than 300 yuan. To save money, I'd been using the same phone for 5 years. It was so laggy it couldn't even open WeChat. And still, I couldn't bring myself to replace it. To save money, I even sold the heirloom my mother left me. Every penny I scrimped and saved, it turns out, became gifts and red envelopes for him to woo another woman, became the designer labels on her back, became the cost of their one romantic date after another. My heart felt as if seized by an invisible hand, crushed to pieces, then thrown to the ground and ground underfoot. The pain numbed me, leaving behind nothing but an endless sense of absurdity and desolation. See it clearly. Li Na withdrew her phone, urging impatiently, "Chen Hao's in trouble, and his phone's unreachable. I have no choice but to come to you for the money." I looked up at her beautiful face and suddenly asked a question. "Wasn't it you two were together the day Chen Hao got into the car accident?" Li Na's eyes darted away, and she let out a cold snort. "None of your business. You'd better think carefully before you speak," I said, my voice icy. "He's paralyzed now, and the police are investigating him, including all his financial transactions. If you want your money back, you'd better start telling me the truth." My words clearly had her rattled. She bit her lip, hesitated for a long moment, and finally began to speak, her reluctance palpable. It turned out that the day before Chen Hao's car accident, the same day he transferred 850,000 to Chen Jia, Li Na had also confronted him for money, pressing him to make good on his promise to buy her a car, but Chen Hao told her the money had already been used to buy a house for his younger brother, asking her to wait a little longer. Li Na immediately erupted in a furious argument with him, calling him a liar. The next day, the very day of the accident, Li Na was relentless. She pursued Chen Hao in her car, forcing him to pull over several times on the road. While the two of them argued furiously over the phone, Chen Hao probably lost focus during the argument with her, causing him to crash into the roadside guardrail. I see. This is truly a masterful piece of black comedy. Staring at this self-righteous woman before me, I suddenly realized, we were both just fools, deceived and toyed with by the same man. The only difference is, I gave 10 years of my youth and my whole heart, while she probably only offered her body and some cheap emotions. I couldn't muster an ounce of hatred for her, only a profound sense of pity. "The money," I said, looking into her eyes and speaking slowly, "I can help you get it back from him. I won't take a penny less than what's mine, and I'll make sure you get what's yours." Li Na's eyes lit up, but, I shifted my tone, "There's one condition. You'll need to appear as a witness in the divorce court hearing between him and me. Accuse him of adultery during the marriage." Li Na's expression flickered, but just seconds later, she made up her mind. "All right. It's a deal." To her, money was far more important than the man who was already paralyzed, and to me, her appearance would be the most devastating blow delivered to Chen Hao and his entire family. 6. Under Su Yu's orchestration, the divorce and fraud cases were consolidated for a joint trial. On the day of the hearing, I made a special trip to the mall. I bought myself a brand new black business suit, swept my hair up into a high bun, and applied a sharp, sophisticated makeup look. As I walked into the courtroom, I could feel every pair of eyes in the room lock onto me. I was no longer Lin Shu, the housewife in a worn-out coat with dull, lifeless eyes. I was the creditor, here to settle all accounts. In the defendant's dock, Chen Hao sat in a wheelchair, pushed in by his elderly father, Chen Jiangwo. His face was ashen, his eyes hollow. In just a few days, he seemed utterly drained of life, having wasted away to a shadow of his former self. Beside him stood his co-defendant, Chen Jia, dressed in an ill-fitting suit. He wrung his hands nervously, trembling from head to toe. All the bluster and arrogance he'd flaunted in the new house was long gone. In the public gallery, the mother-in-law, Zhang Guifan, her hair half turned white, stared at me with eyes red and swollen from crying. The sheer venom in her glare felt like it could strip the flesh from my bones. Their lawyer, a young man who seemed inexperienced, was still making a last-ditch effort. He argued that the 850,000 yuan transfer constituted a financial gift between family members, motivated by Mr. Chen Hao's care for his younger brother, and did not constitute a malicious transfer of assets. As for the signature on the property purchase contract, it was done with the tacit consent of Ms. Lin Shu, a matter of practical expediency. Su Yu stood up, without so much as a glance at the opposing counsel. She calmly and forcefully presented piece after piece of evidence before the judge. "Your Honor, my client first wishes to draw the court's attention to the fact that the so-called family gift by the defendant amounts to 850,000 yuan, nearly the entirety of the savings accumulated during the plaintiff's 10-year marriage to the defendant, Chen Hao. The act of unilaterally gifting such a substantial sum of marital property to a third party, without the plaintiff's consent, constitutes a severe infringement upon my client's legitimate rights and interests." Secondly, regarding this property purchase contract, Su Yu handed over a document to the bailiff. "This is the handwriting analysis report issued by a professional agency commissioned by our side. The report clearly states that the signature Lin Shu on the contract shows multiple significant discrepancies compared to the plaintiff's actual handwriting habits, concluding it was not written by the same person. Forgery of signatures in real estate transactions constitutes a criminal offense under the Penal Code." Chen Jia's legs gave way, and he nearly collapsed to the ground. Chen Hao lowered his head even further. "And that's not all. We now move to call our witness, Ms. Li Na, to the stand." As Su Yu finished speaking, the side door of the courtroom opened and Li Na stepped in, wearing a white dress and high heels, calmly taking her place on the witness stand. Her appearance exploded like a bombshell, sending shockwaves through both the defendant's seat and the gallery. Chen Hao's head snapped up, his eyes fixed on Li Na with disbelief. His gaze was a turbulent mix of shock, fury, and a desperate plea, Zhang Guifan completely lost control on the spot. She sprang up from the spectator seats, pointed at Li Na, and screamed, "You homewrecker, shameless bitch, how dare you show your face here, you're the one who ruined my son." Order in the court. The judge banged the gavel, and bailiffs immediately stepped in, escorting the agitated Zhang Guifan back to her seat and issuing a stern warning. Li Na didn't even glance at them, calmly addressing the judge as she began detailing her 3-year affair with Chen Hao, submitting their chat logs, transaction records, and intimate photos as evidence in court. Every photo, every money transfer, landed like a sledgehammer, crushing the hearts of Chen Hao's family. It shattered their last shred of dignity. Finally, our side submitted the final piece of evidence. It was the complete set of call recordings between myself, Chen Hao, and his mother. On the recording, their family's words were played back clearly. In the aftermath of the incident, they showed not a shred of remorse. Instead, they threatened me, hurled insults, and tried to emotionally blackmail me. "Sell the house now, go and get the money together. Are you trying to drive my whole family to our deaths? If you drop the charges, we can still be husband and wife. You can come and take care of me." As those words echoed through the solemn courtroom, silence fell over the entire defendant's bench. Chen Hao looked at me, his eyes, once the ones that had entranced me, now filled with desperate pleading and sheer terror. His lips quivered as if he wanted to say something. I locked eyes with him, my gaze unreadable, no hatred, no love, just stillness and empty void. From the moment he and his family decided to collude against me and transfer that 850,000, all that remained between us was money. The judge adjourned the court session and set a date for the verdict. As the gavel fell, the Chen family seemed to have all their spirit and energy drained from them in an instant. Slumping limply into their seats, I rose to my feet, straightened my suit jacket, and walked out of the courtroom with my head held high. The sky outside was a brilliant blue 7. Everyone is eager to kick a man when he's down. The details of the court hearing spread like wildfire, quickly reaching every corner of the Chen family's relatives and the family of Chen Jia's fiancé, Wang Lili. At first, Wang Lili's family still clung to a sliver of hope, thinking it might just be a marital spat, that Lin Shu, the vicious sister-in-law, was simply being difficult on purpose. But when terms like forged signatures, contract fraud, marital infidelity, and keeping a mistress were confirmed one by one with the details of the trial, they lost all hope. They realized how close they'd come to pushing their daughter into a pit of con artists, cripples, and a gang of scoundrels. The Wang family's reaction was even quicker and more intense than I'd anticipated. The day after the trial ended, Wang Lili's parents showed up at Chen's rented one-room dwelling in a damp, dim urban village, accompanied by several burly men, their arrival aggressive and intimidating. "Call off the engagement, it must be called off." Wang Lili's mother jabbed a finger in Zhang Guifan's face, spraying spittle as she yelled, "Give back my family's 200,000 yuan bride price and the 3 gold jewelry you bought for my daughter, right now, not a single cent less." Where would Zhang Guifan even get the money? The house they bought for 850,000 yuan has been frozen, and all the family's savings have been spent on Chen Hao's initial treatment. She resorted to her old tricks, plopping herself down on the ground and rolling around, slapping her thighs and throwing a tantrum. "I don't have any money, my son is dying, you're driving us to our graves, we're completely broke right now." But the Wang family wasn't going to take it lying down this time. They weren't having any of it. "No money," sneered Wang Lili's father. "If you've got no money, then we'll clear out the stuff from that house you swindled to settle the debt." With that, he gave a signal, and the burly men behind him charged straight towards Jiangshani Pin. They forced the door open and cleared out everything the Wang family had originally bought for this marital home, from the big screen TV and double-door refrigerator to the sofas and mattresses, taking every last piece of furniture and appliance they could carry. What couldn't be taken away was smashed to pieces. The once magnificent love nest was instantly transformed into a chaotic and filthy dump. Chen Jia's wedding plans have completely fallen through. He went from being a so-called winner in life, about to marry a rich, beautiful woman and move into a multi-million-dollar mansion, to overnight becoming a dreaded fraudster and pauper in the eyes of relatives and neighbors. The immense disparity completely shattered him. He took out all his anger on me. My phone started getting all these crazy abusive texts from him. "Lin Shu, you venomous woman, you've ruined me. I'll haunt you even from the grave. You just wait, when I get out, the first thing I'm gonna do is kill you, you bitch. I hope you die a horrible death." I stared at those filthy words, my face unreadable. I calmly took a screenshot of every single text message, bundled them up, and sent them directly to Suyu on WeChat. I added a note: "New evidence, death threats, Suyu replied instantly, received, excellent, he's one step closer to prison. I switched off my phone, walked into the kitchen, and made myself a cup of fine lapsang sochong black tea. This is a tea I never dared to buy before. It costs hundreds just for half an ounce. Holding a delicate white porcelain teacup, I walked onto the balcony and gazed down at the bustling street below. The tea's fragrance wafts gently, with a slight initial bitterness that gives way to a lingering sweetness. I know this is just the first step in taking my life back. The best is yet to come. 08 On sentencing day, I went to court alone. Suyu had offered to accompany me, but I turned her down. This is my own battle to fight, and I need to see it through to the end with my own eyes. The same people were still seated in the courtroom, but this time, not a trace of arrogance or malice remained on their faces, only an ashen, deathly despair. The judge's voice echoed through the solemn courtroom, each word landing like a hammer blow upon the fate of the Chen family. This court, having heard the case, hereby rules as follows. First, the divorce petition between the plaintiff, Lin Shu, and the defendant, Chen Hao, is hereby granted. Second, in accordance with the relevant provisions of the marriage law, the defendant, Chen Hao, was found to have committed significant marital faults during the marriage, including cohabiting with another person and maliciously transferring marital assets. Therefore, the marital property, namely the residential property located at XX Road, XX Community, is hereby awarded in its entirety to the plaintiff, Lin Shu. The defendant, Chen Hao, shall leave the marriage with no share of the assets. Hearing this, my heart finally settled, a profound weight lifting from my shoulders. That apartment is my final line in the sand, my only anchor in this city. Third, the 300,000 renminbi that the defendant, Chen Hao, privately gifted to Li Na during the marriage constitutes an illegal disposal of marital joint property. The defendant, Chen Hao, is ordered to compensate the plaintiff, Lin Shu, in the amount of 150,000 RMB. Fourth, regarding the criminal aspect, the defendant, Chen Jia, with the purpose of illegal possession, conspired with others to forge a contract and defraud a substantial amount of property. His actions constitute the crime of contract fraud, involving a particularly large sum and circumstances deemed especially serious. He is sentenced to 3 years of fixed-term imprisonment. The defendant, Chen Hao, as a co-conspirator, is an accomplice in this case. However, considering his physical condition following the incident, he is exempt from criminal punishment. Nevertheless, he bears joint and several civil liability for the plaintiff Lin Shu's economic loss of 850,000 RMB. Fifth, the property in question, located in the Jiangshani Pin residential complex, shall be publicly auctioned in accordance with the law. The proceeds from the auction, after deducting relevant taxes and fees, shall be prioritized to repay the principal sum of 850,000 yuan defrauded from the plaintiff, Lin Shu. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell. Its sound final and decisive. No, Zhang Guifan, the mother-in-law, let out a piercing shriek before her eyes rolled back and she collapsed in a dead faint right there in the courtroom. Chaos erupted in the public gallery. 2 bailiffs stepped forward and clamped the cold, metallic handcuffs around Chen Jia's wrists. Only at this moment did the full weight of what he was about to face truly dawn on him. He broke down completely, sobbing and screaming as he fought desperately. Bro, save me, bro, I don't want to go to jail. And his brother, whom he had once revered as a god, now sat slumped in a wheelchair like a soulless statue, his eyes vacant, his spirit utterly broken. I stood up and didn't look at them again. I stepped out of the courthouse, and the sun was shining brightly, making it hard for me to open my eyes. The heavy gloom that had been weighing on my chest for days finally lifted completely in that moment. I finally got back my money, my house, my dignity, and the 10 years of my life that had been stolen. Suyue was waiting for me right outside the courthouse. When she saw me, a brilliant smile lit up her face. She didn't say a word, just walked up and gave me a big, tight hug. Congratulations, Lin Shu, a new lease on life. Yes, a new lease on life. 09 The Chen family's world has completely collapsed. To repay the 200,000 dowry money returned to the Wang family and to cover the high costs of Chen Hao's ongoing rehabilitation, father-in-law Chen Jiangwo had no choice but to reluctantly sell their ancestral home in their hometown. The money from selling the house is just a drop in the bucket for this mess. Having lost their only home, Zhang Guifan and Chen Jiangwo were forced to rent a dark, sunless single room of less than 20 square meters in a village on the city's outermost fringe. They had to bring their son, Chen Hao, who is paralyzed and completely dependent on others for care, with them. Those relatives who used to flatter and fawn over them now avoid Then like the plague, no calls answered, no messages returned. Jean Guifen went from being the respected matriarch whose word was law in the family to becoming an outcast everyone avoided like the plague. Her daily life revolved entirely around the most basic, unpleasant bodily functions. Her days were spent tending to the paralyzed Chen Hao, feeding him, giving him water, washing him, and dealing with his waste, ravaged by his physical disability and the immense psychological toll. Chen Hao's temper grew viciously volatile. He would frequently scream at his parents, throw things, and hurl insults. As for Jean Guifen, her initial heartache gradually hardened into numbness and resentment. Endless exhaustion and a future without hope caused her to age rapidly, visibly so. Her back was hunched, her hair completely white, her face etched with deep wrinkles, and her gaze clouded and dull. At last, she broke down. On a drizzly evening, she found the neighborhood where I lived without an access card. She couldn't get in, so she waited by the entrance to the residential complex. Driving home from work, I spotted her from a distance, a hunched figure shivering in the rain. I drove into the underground parking garage without a flicker of expression, then took a different elevator upstairs. I thought she'd give up and leave. To my surprise, half an hour later, my doorbell rang. I checked the video intercom, and on the screen was the aged and haggard face of Jean Guifen. Lin Shu, Shu. She said into the camera, her voice hoarse and choked with tears, "Open the door, let me see you, I'm begging you." I didn't say a word, just stared at her coldly. Seeing that I didn't respond, she actually dropped to her knees with a thud, right there on the cold tiles at my doorstep. She began slapping herself hard, over and over. Bang, bang, bang. The loud voice, transmitted through the electric current, sounded exceptionally clear. "It's all my fault, I was completely out of my mind. I'm so sorry, Shu. I know I was wrong, I truly do. You're the only one who truly cares for Chen Hao. He needs you now. He talks about you every single day. Please, I'm begging you, for the sake of our 10 years as mother and daughter-in-law, for the sake of how pitiful Chen Hao is now, please forgive us and come back and take care of him." Her sobs sounded so full of sorrow and remorse, yet my heart remained utterly unmoved. Standing behind the cold security door, I spoke calmly into the intercom. "You should have seen this coming the day your whole family conspired against me and threw me away like trash." My words were like a key that turned the switch on her disguise. Her sobs cut off abruptly, replaced by vicious curses. "Lin Shu, you heartless wretch, may you die a miserable death. You'll get your comeuppance. I curse you to live a lonely life, childless and forgotten." She was back to being the bitter, sharp-tongued Jean Guifen I knew. I let out a cold, mocking laugh. I immediately dialed 110, the emergency police number. "Hello, I need to report a crime. There's someone outside my door causing a disturbance and harassing me. It's seriously disrupting my life." 15 minutes later, the police arrived. They took away Jean Guifen, who was still throwing a tantrum and hurling curses at the door. Peace and quiet had finally returned to the world. For those who have hurt me, the word forgiveness has never existed in my dictionary. Several more months passed, and I had gradually grown accustomed to this peaceful and free life. The luxury apartment at Jiangshani Pin has been successfully auctioned by the court. After deducting various fees, the 850,000 yuan belonging to me, including principal and interest, has been fully returned to my account without any loss. With my premarital apartment and the savings I've accumulated over the years, I now have a solid foundation to build my life upon. Just when I thought Chen Hao's name would vanish from my life forever, a long string of messages arrived from an unknown number. The tone of the text message was unmistakably Chen Hao's, but the clumsy typing and typos made it clear Jean Guifen had written it for him. The letter was long this time. There was no trace of resentment or excuse, just a belated apology and profound remorse from start to finish. He admitted that it was his selfishness, cowardice, and blind filial devotion that had personally destroyed our 10-year relationship, ruined me, and ultimately destroyed himself, lying in this moldy bed every day, breathing in the damp smell that never leaves this rented room. Listening to my parents' sighs and arguments, I finally realized what I've truly lost. I often think of the congee you used to make for me, the way you kept our home so clean and tidy, and how your eyes used to sparkle like stars when you looked at me. Shu, I'm not worthy of you. I took your kindness for granted. If there's a next life, I hope to serve you as an ox or a horse, to repay even a fraction of what I owe you. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I only hope that you can live well from now on, forget a wretch like me, and start anew." At the end of the letter, a photograph was enclosed. It was a signed voluntary human organ donor registration form. He said this was the last worthwhile thing his broken body could do. I read the entire letter with a blank expression. No anger, no sorrow, not even a hint of satisfaction. My heart was as still as stagnant water. No stone could ripple it. Late feelings are worth less than grass. His confession means nothing to me. His suffering cannot begin to make up for even a fraction of the pain I endured. I selected the message and tapped delete. Then, I dragged the photo of the organ donation form into my phone's recycle bin and permanently deleted it. My life has already turned a new page. From now on, I have nothing to do with him. 11 A year later, in the most prestigious office tower downtown, the sign for Serenity Financial Accounting Firm shone brightly and prominently dressed in a perfectly tailored bespoke suit. I stood before the expansive floor-to-ceiling window, gazing down at the bustling city below. With the money I had recovered and my formidable professional expertise, I rebuilt my career from the ground up. The firm went from just a handful of clients to earning a solid reputation in the industry in just 1 year. I am no longer the housewife whose world revolved around the kitchen stove and the local market. Now, I am Lin Shu, the one who commands respect at the negotiation table every day, addressed by all as President Lin. So you became the chief legal counsel at my firm. The two of us, single, powerhouse women in our 30s, live lives more vibrant and free than anyone else. Once, while driving, I passed by that remote urban village. A casual turn of my head, and I caught a glimpse of the scene by the roadside. Zhang Guifan, gaunt and frail, pushed Chen Hao, seated in a wheelchair, along the roadside to soak up the sun. Chen Hao's hair hung long and unkempt, his face shadowed with stubble. He had grown gaunt, almost unrecognizable, with eyes that burned with impatience and a simmering rage. The two of them were locked in a heated argument over a stale bun. I didn't slow down, eyes fixed ahead. I pressed the accelerator and left that scene far behind. It was like seeing two complete strangers who had nothing to do with my life. Their world is an eternal hell without a hint of daylight. In my world, the sun shines brightly and flowers bloom in abundance. Some time later, I was invited to speak at a major industry summit as a representative of outstanding young entrepreneurs. I took the stage to give a speech. The spotlight fell on me, looking out at the sea of faces in the audience, their eyes filled with admiration and curiosity. I smiled and picked up the microphone. Hello everyone, I'm Lin Shu. Many people are curious about how I grew a startup firm to its current size in just 1 year. There's only one thing I'd like to say about that. I paused for a moment, my gaze sweeping across the room, my voice clear and resolute. Thank you for all the experiences in the past, whether good or bad, because they didn't break me, they will only make me stronger. A thunderous applause erupted from the audience. My life, no dwelling on the past, no fear of the future. I'm free. This feeling is better than having 5 million, better than owning the whole world. The end. Story 2. I tricked the young master of the Beijing Circle into bed and spent the whole night with him. The system blared, you silly fool, stop, you're supposed to pursue the male lead. You slept with his twin brother. My body stiffened suddenly, and my mind was in a turmoil. Are you saying that Shinji isn't the male lead? Later, in the hotel suite there were two identical faces, one in front and one behind. You have some nerve. Shinji snuffed out the cigarette in his hand, and his fingertips caressed my thigh. What, you want both of us brothers? Wait a minute. My body stiffened suddenly, and my mind was in a turmoil. Are you saying that Shinji isn't the male lead? The system said with a smirk. Yes, the male lead you need to pursue is Shinji's twin brother, Shin-yang. No wonder I couldn't measure Shinji's favorability value. I was furious. Then why didn't you tell me earlier? I'm going to complain to the system bureau about your dereliction of duty. Awake, Shinji spoke in a hoarse voice. His warm palm grasped my waist from behind and gently kneaded it. I suddenly sat up and dodged Shinji's hand. Shinji's slender and beautiful hand suddenly stopped in midair. His long eyelashes trembled slightly, hiding the fleeting darkness in his eyes. And then he raised his eyes to look at me. His wet and beautiful eyes were still a bit red. Last night, he was pestered by me, calling himself my good dog, crying and panting for half the night. But who would have thought that the one crying and begging for mercy in the end was me? However, Shinji seemed to be completely deaf, and I was so angry that I wanted to get him a pair of hearing aids on the spot. I will never admit that I fainted last night because of Shinji. Shinji withdrew his hand, looking like a poor little dog being disliked by its owner. Are you angry? I'm sorry. I'll listen to you next time. The system clicked its tongue and said in a sarcastic tone, you still want to complain about me? The host clearly enjoyed it herself. I don't know who it is that says every day that tears are a man's black silk, and the more a man cries, the more a woman likes it. You're probably obsessed with it. It's so embarrassing, but it's not my fault. Just ask, which woman can resist the extreme contrast of Shinji, who has a cold face but whimpers and groans in bed. I suddenly felt a little flustered. Shinji is a favorite of heaven, cold and ruthless. He hates deception the most and can't tolerate even a speck of sand in his eyes. When I first transmigrated into this world, I thought of taking advantage of Shinji's amnesia to pursue him, get the 10 million reward for the pursuit mission, and then escape. However, who would have thought that there are two identical young masters of the Beijing Circle? Who would have thought that the person who was nuzzling in my chest last night would be in a life or death situation when I woke up this morning? The most important thing is that I even tricked him into being my dog. Right now, Shinji is at my mercy because of his amnesia, but once he regains his memory, he will want to tear me into pieces. I calmed down my mind. Shinji has amnesia, not a lack of intelligence. Being too abnormal will definitely make him notice something strange. I was scared to death, but I still obediently nestled back into Shinji's arms and gave him another peck. Hee. It smells so good. The system couldn't stand it anymore. Host, a friendly reminder, you don't have much time left for the pursuit mission. The male lead is about to return to the country. Please make preparations for the pursuit according to the main storyline. Good luck. Wait a minute, about to return to the country. Me, where is Shenyang now? The system, in the UK. Me, get me a plane ticket to the UK, the sooner the better. Now that Shinji has amnesia, I just need to hide it from him. Then, while I have this time, I'll fly to the UK to pursue Shenyang, get the money directly, and then escape. Even if Shinji regains his memory, no matter how powerful the Shin family is, they can't do anything to a dead person. Damn it. Look at how smart I am. The 10 million yuan in gold. Here I come, Mom. My eyes rolled, and I hooked my arm around Shinji's neck. Aji, I received a call from my mother yesterday. I suppressed the excitement in my heart and frowned with a sad expression on my face. She's ill in the UK, and I want to go and see her. As a pursuer who transmigrated here, where would I have a mother? Lying about going to the UK is a double insurance. Mother. Shinji was taken aback for a moment. Okay, I'll go with you. No need. I quickly made up an excuse. My mother has a rather strange personality, and I haven't told her about us yet, and you're not fully recovered from the car accident. A long-distance flight will be bad for your health. Shinji looked at me, his eyes dark and unreadable. The atmosphere was a bit strange, especially after I found out that Shinji wasn't the male lead. I felt inexplicably guilty. Aji. The urgent ringing of the phone interrupted my words. Shinji glanced at me. He slightly turned the phone and covered the screen, then answered the call. I let out a long sigh of relief. The system just said that the plane ticket had been booked. To avoid any more complications, I had to slip away quickly. I took out the suitcase and squatted down to pack my things neatly. Suddenly, an indescribable sense of strangeness crept up my spine, and my back felt cold. I suddenly turned my head, holding the phone. Shinji stood half a meter away and looked down at me with a cold face. My heart skipped a beat. The phone, the look in his eyes. Has Shinji remembered? The next second, Shinji hung up the phone. He leaned towards me, with a hint of coquetry in his tone. Are you really sure you don't want me to go to the UK with you? My heart instantly settled back into my chest. Thank goodness. It's okay that he didn't remember. I hooked my arm around his neck. The little dog should stay at home and guard the house. I promise I'll be back soon. Okay. Shinji looked at me and didn't say anything. Just as I was about to let go, Shinji lowered his head and bit my shoulder. I winced in pain. What are you doing? Do you know, little dogs actually have a strong sense of territory? His warm breath blew against my ear, and Shinji said in a deep voice, my own master can only be marked by myself. I was a bit confused. What do you mean? My words were drowned out in the kiss. Shinji firmly held the back of my head. The kiss was intense until something pressed against my thighs. Shinji released me, his lips glistening. Is it okay? We stayed up all night last night, and now again this morning. Why didn't I realize before that Shinji was like a teddy? Giving in to the temptation of a handsome man will destroy myself, but with such a stunningly beautiful man in front of me, it would be a waste of being human if I didn't give in. The light above our heads was jolted and shattered. Shinji suddenly stopped his movements. Jiangwan, I want a gift. I was feeling so uncomfortable from his teasing that my mind went blank. What? What do you want? When you go to the UK, Shinji buried his head in my neck, and a fierce look flashed in his eyes. Of course, a gift from the UK. I came at a good time. Shenyang is studying painting in the UK now that he suddenly wants to return to the country in a hurry. He has a pile of paintings that need to be dealt with, but it seems that the Shin family didn't tell him about Shinji's car accident and disappearance. The system helped me fabricate the identity of the gallery manager, and I got in touch with Shenyang in the name of charity. They have the same face, but compared to Shinji's coldness, Shenyang is really cute and innocent. On Friday, I asked Xinyan to sell me his paintings. Xinyan packed the paintings into a box and gave them to me. Sister, thank you for liking my paintings. Although both of them are younger than me, Xinji has never called me sister. Xinyan has a faint scent of ocean and citrus, which smells really good. I stood on tiptoe and deliberately got very close to Xinyan, and said with a disappointed look, I'm really a failure. I've been chasing someone for so long, but he thinks I just like his paintings. Little did I know that from a certain angle, this posture looked like I was actively asking for a kiss. Xinyan looked at me, stunned for a moment, and then his eyes began to dodge nervously, and the tips of his ears turned red. When we were having a meal, I asked Xinyan to tie my hair for me. Xinyang's fingers ran through my hair. I let out a soft moan. It hurts. Xinyan immediately withdrew his fingers. Okay, it's done. I turned my head slightly and smiled at Xinyan. You're not very skilled. Haven't you tied your girlfriend's hair before? Xinyan lowered his head, and even his neck started to turn red. I've never had a girlfriend. I smiled and didn't say anything. I lowered my head and continued eating. But I knew that Xinyan was looking at me. My god of wealth is about to take the bait. Sister, I have a basketball game on Sunday. Can you come? I turned my head, and our eyes met. Xinyang's ears were red, and he quickly looked away. I deliberately paused for a moment, making Xinyang's heart race with anticipation. Sure. Surprise flashed in Xinyang's eyes. Really, sister? Of course it's true. My 10 million yuan. Xinyang seems thinner than Xinji, but when he lifted his vest to wipe the sweat, his muscle lines were firm and neat. I sat on the sidelines and couldn't help but sigh. No wonder they're brothers. The family genes are really good. They were born with 8-pack abs. During the halftime break, Xinyan ran over. He squatted down in front of me, looking like a happy little dog waiting for his master's praise. Sister, did I play well? Yeah, your abs are well trained. Xinyan looked at me, his ears burning red. He licked his lips. Sister, The phone rang at an inopportune moment. I took out my phone, and my eyebrows twitched violently. Xinyan also looked over at the sound of the ringtone on the phone screen. There were 2 big words in the contact remark, Xinji. I quickly covered the phone screen and stood up in a panic. My heart was pounding. Xinyan looked up at me with innocent eyes. What's wrong, sister? Thank goodness. He probably didn't see it. If Xinyan knew that I had a connection with Xinji and checked into it a little, I would be exposed and doomed. The phone was still vibrating. I calmed down my mind. It's okay, it's my mom's call. I'll go and answer it. Xinyan nodded. I trotted out of the stadium and only answered the phone when I was sure I couldn't hear the sound of the basketball anymore. Hello, what's up? On the other end of the phone, Xinji's breathing clearly stagnated, as if he was trying his best to suppress some emotion. What are you doing? I adjusted my breathing. I was a bit out of breath from running. Nothing, I'm taking a walk with my mom. Xinji's voice was a bit cold. How is auntie? She's fine, thank you. I paused and smiled. Why, do you miss me? Yes. When will you be back? Surprisingly, Xinyang's favorability value was rising very quickly and had already reached 60%. I looked down and kicked the pebble at my feet. The doctor said it's still not very stable. I'm afraid it will take another month or 2. Ouch. A ball flew towards me and hit my head. I cried out in pain. Who was playing basketball so carelessly? Why did Xinji suddenly hang up? During dinner in the evening, I drank a little wine. Xinyan thought I was a bit drunk and sent me back to the hotel. His hand was lightly placed on my waist. He was afraid that I would fall, but he didn't dare to really hold me. Xinyan, why is your face so red? Are you not feeling well? I asked knowingly and put the back of my hand on his forehead. Appropriate physical contact is an essential means to succeed in the pursuit. Sure enough, Xinyang's face turned even redder. It turned red all the way to his neck. I'm a bit hot. Xinyan turned his face away and helped me stand up straight, and said softly, Sister, we're here. Mom, he's so cute. I stood up straight and had the idea of teasing Xinyan. Are you hot? I turned my head to look at him and swiped the card to open the door. Then do you want to come in and have a glass of water? The door beeped and unlocked. My hand just touched the doorknob, but I hadn't turned it yet. The door opened from the inside. Xinyan was stunned. Brother, why are you here? Brother, my heart instantly rose to my throat, and before I could react, a big hand suddenly pulled me into the room. The door slammed shut. The cold and hard door panel hurt my back. Outside the door, Xinyan banged on the door vigorously. Brother, what are you doing? Open the door. Going to the UK, visiting your mother. Xinji stared at me fiercely, and his hand pinching my shoulder was so strong that it seemed like he was going to crush my bones. I was extremely panicked. Xinji, listen to me. My collar was suddenly torn open, revealing a glimpse of my chest. Have you slept with him? Shinji clamped my chin with one hand and forcefully inserted his tongue into my mouth. The kiss made my legs go weak and my mind go blank. I clung to Shinji feebly. Shinji stared at me, in his long and narrow eyes as black as ink. It was like a huge net that was about to swallow me up completely. Does he make you feel good? I was taken aback, thinking I had misheard. What? Does he make you feel good, or do I make you feel good? Outside the door, Xinyang was banging on the door and calling my name. My mind was in a mess, and I completely lost my ability to think. True, Shinji sneered, we are twins. Separately, you certainly can't tell the difference. Behind me, the doorknob turned. I suddenly pressed down on Shinji's hand, my heart pounding. What are you going to do? Of course, I'm going to have sex with you. Baby, Shinji leaned down, and his warm and humid breath brushed against my earbone. However, my younger brother is so worried about you outside the door, and you like him. Should I, as the older brother, be more magnanimous? Shinji paused and rubbed my red and swollen lips. Do you want me to let him in and join us? Baby, are you crazy? I suddenly opened my eyes wide in disbelief. Am I crazy? His slender fingers with distinct knuckles brushed across my lips. They traveled down along my chin and landed on my neck. Shinji chuckled, but his voice was as cold as ice. Shouldn't you praise me for being magnanimous and understanding? You're so magnanimous. Then take your hand off my neck first. Sure. I let go of his hand and looked at him with my neck held high. Open the door and let Xinyang in. Jiangwan. The pressure on my neck suddenly increased, and Shinji looked at me. Do you know what usually happens to people who deceive me? I swallowed hard. I was scared to death, but my mouth was as stubborn as ever. You clearly have already regained your memory, but you didn't tell me either. Shinji's face showed a moment of surprise. Was he convinced by me? I carefully pried his hand away. Then we're even. I still have something to do. I'll be leaving now. Do you think you can leave? Shinji grabbed the back of my collar and threw me onto the large white bed behind him. I panicked and propped myself up. Shinji, you. My words were drowned out in the kiss. Under the heavy breathing, there were only occasional moans. Shinji firmly held the back of my head with one hand and took out his phone from his pocket with the other hand. On the phone interface that had somehow lit up, the name of the caller was clearly displayed. Xinyang. Damn it, did he call Xinyang? So is this like a live broadcast right now? I was shocked and didn't care about anything else. I bit down hard on Shinji's tongue. He hissed in pain and let go. I snatched the phone from him and hung up. You're crazy. Why did you call Xinyang? Shinji sneered. What? Are you nervous, afraid that my younger brother will be jealous and sad? I took a deep breath. I don't have that kind of hobby, really, but I abide by 4 words, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Shinji raised his eyes to look at me, his eyes cold and gloomy. You dared to let me listen, so why can't I let him listen? Suddenly, the image of the phone call that Shinji suddenly hung up on at the basketball court today inexplicably flashed through my mind. I took a deep breath and began to explain. Shinji, Xinyang, and I. Enough, I'm not interested. Shinji interrupted me sharply, his brows furrowed with annoyance, but I vaguely saw a hint of fear and evasion in his eyes. He got up and walked to the French window, turning his back on me. After a long while, he spoke with a mocking tone. Don't worry, I didn't call Xinyang. I'm not that crazy yet. White smoke rose and dissipated again. Shinji was smoking heavily. Get out. Break up with Xinyang completely, and come back to the country with me. I can pretend. Shinji, let's break up. Shinji's hand holding the cigarette paused, and a fierce look flashed in his eyes. Jiangwan, say that again. I avoided his gaze, feeling guilty. Before, it was all a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Shinji took a few steps towards me and clamped my chin with one hand. I was forced to tilt my head back. Shinji's breathing was unsteady. You've been sleeping with me for a year, and now you say it's a misunderstanding. Shinji, this is my fault, so you don't like me at all, right? Shinji's eyes were pitch black, and his jaw was tightly clenched. Or did you find out that I have a younger brother, with the same face, but he satisfies you more, so you can't wait to get rid of me? The force clamping my chin tightened inch by inch. Jiangwan, I really want to kill you. The next second, Shinji's pupils suddenly constricted, and he abruptly let go of his hand. He asked me in a panic, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell somewhere? I only realized later and raised my hand to touch my philtrum. There was blood. Pursuing the target is a job that involves taking great risks within the mission time. If the pursuit is successful, the corresponding reward will be obtained. Conversely, the host will be eliminated by the system, and the strange symptoms starting to appear in my body mean that the pursuit time is about to enter the countdown. I raised my head to stop the bleeding. it's okay, I'm just a bit inflamed, but Shinji wouldn't listen. He held my face with one hand and gently wiped the blood from my nose with a tissue. It was as if he was wiping a precious porcelain. Lie on the bed and rest. I'll contact the doctor to come right away. I stared at him blankly. I have to admit that I like Shinji, but my liking for him is not as important as my life and the money. I decided to go all out and used all my acting skills in my life to turn cold-hearted. Shinji, you're right, I don't like you anymore. Are you sure you want to talk to me in this situation? Shinji interrupted me, his voice cold and deep. The next second, the door was suddenly pushed open from the outside and banged against the wall. Brother, let her go. A strong force grabbed my wrist and pulled me away from in front of Shinji. The familiar scent of ocean and citrus lingered in my nose. Shin Yang protected me by his side. I was stunned when I saw Shin Yang, who suddenly appeared. How did you get in? I asked the staff to open the door. Shin Yang turned his head to look at me, and instantly lost his usual cute and soft look. There was a hint of coldness in his voice. Did he bully you? I shook my head to soothe him. No, I'm just a bit inflamed. What? Shinji slowly crumpled the blood-stained tissue into a ball and sneered. Are you really that worried about her, brother? I'm taking her away now. Shinji glanced at the hand that Shin Yang was holding my wrist with, his eyes fierce. Are you going to compete with me? The atmosphere in the room was extremely tense. I was the only one who was distracted while looking at these two extremely good-looking faces. I mean, can't I have both of these brothers? The system rolled its eyes. Please, host, don't have such unrealistic fantasies. Complete the task as required. Shinji, I spoke up to break the deadlock. I think I've made myself very clear. I tugged at the corner of Shin Yang's clothes. Let's go. Jiangwan, you choose to leave with him. At the door of the room, Shinji stopped me, his voice cold and deep. Do you really know what kind of person he is? Shinji returned to the country, and I continued to pursue Shin Yang. As for his words, I observed for a long time and didn't find any abnormalities in Shin Yang. Maybe he just said those things on purpose to sow discord on the weekend. Shin Yang invited me to his apartment for dinner. Looking at the large table full of dishes, I deliberately said, Are you sure it's just dinner? Why yes, of course. Shin Yang didn't dare to look at me when he lied, and I knew that he had been going to the gym frequently recently. I thought someone who goes to the gym every day was trying to give me a surprise. I pretended to be disappointed. It seems I thought too much. The tips of Shin Yang's ears instantly turned red, but he still refused to admit it. What gym? What do you mean? Sister, I nodded and stood up. I see, then I'll go back after I finish eating. Shin Yang panicked. He quickly grabbed my hand and then let go shyly, saying softly, Sister. I ruffled Shin Yang's hair. So, tell me the truth. When Shin Yang appeared in front of me with fox ears on his head and his neck red, I had to admit that I was tempted. A male fox who is both innocent and seductive is really breaking my resolve. I lowered my head and pretended to cough, trying to cover it up. Where did you learn all this? I accidentally saw your favorites folder last time. Shin Yang didn't dare to look at me and hesitated. Sister, don't you like it? How can I say what I really think? I like it. I looked at Shin Yang with starry eyes. Can I see your abs with this? Shin Yang's ears were red as he reached out and grabbed my hand. He led my hand under the hem of his hoodie and let my fingers slide upwards one by one. They were hot and firm. I smiled. Did you suck in your stomach on purpose? Yes, it makes them more obvious. Well, he's quite cunning. I like it. I didn't say anything more and continued to move my hand upwards along his abs. Shin Yang grabbed my hand through the hoodie, his face flushed. Sister, on a whim, I said, Shin Yang, let's be together. Unexpectedly, my words made Shin Yang's brows turn cold. Oh no, could it be because of my relationship with Shinji? I was too hasty. I should have waited for the right moment to bring it up. I withdrew my hand and tried to make up for it. Shin Yang, it doesn't matter. Sure. Shin Yang leaned down and hugged me, rubbing against my neck like a puppy snuggling up to its owner. Sister, let's be together. The system, host, the favorability value has reached 90%. I was instantly stunned. Why is it only 90%? Shin Yang was recalled by the Shin family, so I had to go back to the country with him. I just don't know why the favorability value has been stuck at 90% since that day and hasn't increased, and according to past experience, as long as the person being pursued sincerely agrees to a relationship, the favorability value will directly reach the full value. So, Shin Yang doesn't really like me. Is he lying to me? I returned to the apartment in the evening. The corridor light was broken, and the property management hadn't come to fix it yet. I didn't pay much attention and continued walking, but when I was about to enter the password to open the door, my forearm was suddenly grabbed from the side. Damn it. Shin Yang went back to the Shin family's old residence. Tonight, in case the person has a knife, I can't provoke him. My heart was pounding wildly, but I forced myself to remain calm. Just as I was about to speak, the scent of pine wood after snow mixed with strong liquor wafted into my nose. I was taken aback. Shinji. This call seemed to stimulate the person even more. He grabbed my arm and pulled me forcefully, then turned around and pressed me against the wall in the dark. Shinji's breathing was unsteady, and his voice was hoarse. Are you together with Shinyang? I wrinkled my nose. Why did you drink so much? Answer me. The force on my wrist kept increasing. In the dark, Shinji was like a trapped beast that had been tortured countless times in a cage. I took a deep breath and decided to end things once and for all. Yes, I'm with Shinyang. Shinji looked at me. The next second, he hooked his big hand and hugged me tightly into his arms. I struggled to push him away. Shinji, what are you doing? Let go. Jiangwan, before I came here tonight, I had already made up my mind. Shinji held me down and rested his chin on the side of my neck. If you said yes, I would knock you out and take you away directly, lock you up where no one can find you. There would only be the two of us in the villa. I would install full surveillance and put chains on you so that you could only stay by my side for the rest of your life. Icy liquid landed on my shoulder. I was taken aback and quickly tried to push him away, but Shinji hugged me even tighter. His voice was hoarse, and he was clearly trying his best to control himself, but his voice was still shaking more and more violently. But I found that I can't do it. How could a little dog be willing to really hurt its master? Once the emotions that had been tightly guarded had a crack, they gushed out like a flood. My shoulder was now like a sea of tears. Shinji sniffled and said in a hoarse voice, Jiangwan, why can't you like me just a little bit more? I didn't say anything and gently patted his back. My heart felt as if it had been soaked in an ancient well, cold and astringent. In the dark and empty corridor, the silence was broken by soft sobs. After a long while, Shinji let go of me and quickly walked towards the outside of the corridor. When he reached the elevator entrance, he suddenly stopped. He said to me, Jiangwan, what you want, I'll let you have it. I opened the door. The room was pitch black. The sound insulation of this house wasn't very good. Shinyang wasn't here tonight. Otherwise, everything that happened outside the door would have been heard clearly by the person inside. Sister, the bedroom door was suddenly opened, and warm yellow light spilled out. My heart skipped a beat. Why did you come back? Shinyang walked towards me, rubbing his eyes, looking like he hadn't woken up. I missed you. He reached out and wrapped his arms around my waist, burying his head in my neck and acting coquettishly. So I came back right after dinner, but you weren't here. I forced a smile and probed, did I wake you up? No, I was sweating and woke up because of the heat. Then I realized that Shinyang was shirtless. Sister, Shinyang's voice was a bit muffled, and his warm and humid breath surrounded my ear. Do you like me like this? What do you mean by like this? You're just you, aren't you? Shinyang looked up at me, and his eyes as black as ink seemed to be filled with water, so pitiful and lovely. He curved his lips and smiled with his eyes closed. Yeah, I'm just me. I pried his hands away and pushed him towards the bathroom. Okay, go take a shower, you're all sticky. Just as I turned to leave, Shinyang suddenly grabbed me. Sister, how about we get married? I was taken aback. Get married? Shinyang reached out and placed his hands on either side of me. Although it was a very oppressive posture, he had an innocent and docile expression. Yeah, get married. Me. System. What's Shinyang's favorability value now? The system, 90%. Could it be that Shin Yang's favorability value can only reach the full value if we get married? I'm just kidding. Look how nervous you are. I'll go take a shower first. Shinyang withdrew his hands and smiled cutely with his eyes curved, and the moment he turned around, where I couldn't see, Shinyang raised his eyes. His eyes were filled with gloom. Shinyang had a car accident. By the time I found out and rushed to the hospital, it was already 3 days after the accident. Outside the ward, I was stopped by 2 burly bodyguards. Sorry, madam has given instructions to prohibit any idle people from visiting. Fine, I'm just an idle person. I dialed Shinyang's phone number. Hello, sister, tell them to let me in. There were a few seconds of static on the phone. Shinyang spoke, his voice smiling. Sister, what are you talking about? I'm outside your ward. I took a deep breath. How long are you going to keep this from me? After that, I hung up the phone directly. Soon, a middle-aged woman came out to convey a message. She looked like a senior nurse. I walked into the ward angrily. Shinyang was lying on the bed, with gauze on his face, except for his right hand under the quilt. The rest of his body was in a cast. When he saw me, he excitedly propped himself up, his eyes bright, like a fluffy puppy eagerly looking for its master to snuggle with. Sister, I lashed out at him. Why did you lie to me and say you were at the Shin family's old residence when I called you these past few days, Shin? Yang lowered his eyes and said in a low voice, "It's not serious, I didn't want you to worry." Seeing that I ignored him, Shin Yang raised his right hand and carefully hooked my little finger. His right hand, from the back of his hand to his upper arm, was covered in red abrasions. "You call this not serious, sister? I'm sorry, please don't be angry with me." "Okay." Shin Yang apologized softly and gently swayed my little finger. It seemed as if it was me who was hurt, not him who could resist such. A cute puppy admitting his mistake and acting coquettishly in front of you. My anger instantly subsided a great deal. I withdrew my hand and pretended to have a cold face. "How did you get into the accident?" "I was distracted while driving and accidentally hit the guardrail." I leaned down and gently pinched the only part of Shin Yang's face that wasn't injured, threatening, "If you dare to lie to me again in the future, you're dead." "Got it." As soon as I finished speaking, I was instantly stunned. "I'm just a pursuer, whether I succeed or fail, I have to leave. There's no such thing as in the future." I suddenly became afraid of hearing Shin Yang's reply and quickly changed the subject. "Just stay here, I'm going to the bathroom. There's one in the ward. I don't like the toilet outside." As I spoke, I hurried outside, passing by the nurse's station. 2 nurses inside were chatting and gossiping. "I went to change the dressing for the person in the VIP ward today. He's really super handsome in person, handsome and rich, so nice. I have some gossip about him. Do you want to hear it?" "Tell me quickly." "He was admitted to our hospital because of a car accident." "Right, I heard." The nurse lowered her voice. "He crashed into his brother with his car, and that's how he got into the accident." I stayed in the toilet for a long time. I splashed handfuls of cold water on my face. My mind was filled with every bit of my time spent with Shin Yang. In fact, I should have noticed it earlier. From the first time I met Shin Yang, he had a completely opposite personality from Shinji. He and Shinji are twins, sharing the same blood in their bones. Shinji is not an easy person to deal with, so how could Shin Yang be completely harmless? Or rather, it should be said that he is actually more ruthless and crazy than Shinji. It seems that I was pursuing him, but in fact, he put on the appearance that I liked the most and led me into his trap step by step. However, I had never met Shin Yang before. It's impossible for him to know about the system either. And why did he suddenly crash into Shinji? I suddenly realized Shin Yang heard what happened outside the door that night. He was pretending, and he was enduring. "Miss Jiang, do you need any help?" It was Shin Yang's nurse. "It's okay, I'll be done soon." I grabbed some tissue, wiped the water stains on my face, and turned back to the ward. "Why did it take you so long, sister?" Shin Yang leaned against the headboard and turned to look at me. He still had that innocent and pure expression. I stared at him for a long time. "Shin Yang, the reason you had the car accident." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. "It was because you drove into Shinji, right?" Shin Yang's face froze. After a few seconds, he smiled self-deprecatingly. "You know it now?" I exclaimed in shock. "Are you crazy? He's your brother." "Maybe." Shin Yang nodded, his expression empty. "Or maybe I'm just a crazy person. I've just been acting for so long that I've even forgotten who I really am." I looked into his eyes, my voice trembling. "Then why did you change your mind at the last moment? And you clearly could have turned the steering wheel all the way to the right to avoid it yourself. Why did you still drive straight into the wall?" Shin Yang gave a bitter laugh. "Maybe I wanted to punish myself, or maybe I wanted you to feel sorry for me and care about me." I took a deep breath. "So you had seen or known me before I went to the UK to find you, right?" 2 months after Shinji's car accident, my parents found him, but he didn't want to come back. I was very curious, so I hired a private detective and got your photos and videos. I never thought I would fall for the same person as Shinji." He turned sideways, stared at the white wall opposite the bed, and said in a desolate voice, "Jiang Wan, I can't compare with Shinji. What he wants, he never hides his ambition and possessiveness, he just goes for it openly and above board. As for me, I can only use schemes and tricks. I put on an innocent and pure act to please you." Shin Yang lowered his eyes, like a prisoner waiting for the death sentence. "So, would you still want me?" My mind was in a complete mess. I turned around and wanted to leave the ward to get some fresh air. "Sister, please don't leave." There was a sound of something heavy falling to the ground behind me. I quickly turned around and saw Shin Yang lying on the ground, trying to crawl forward with his right hand supporting his body. The wound on his back had opened, staining his blue and white hospital gown. "What are you doing?" I quickly ran back, but I could only help him sit up. I couldn't get him back onto the bed. "I'll call the bodyguard in." Shin Yang's only intact right hand wrapped around my waist, as if using all his strength, squeezing the air out of my chest. "Sister, don't leave, I won't lie to you again in the future, if you don't like me like this. I promise I can pretend to be the way I was before for the rest of my life. His voice gradually turned into a sob, desperate. No, I'm not pretending, I can really be that person, really, please believe me. I won't go crazy again, I'll definitely listen to you obediently, don't leave me behind, Shenyang. I'm not leaving. I took a moment to calm down and then raised my hand to pat his back gently, but if you don't loosen your grip a bit, I might really be suffocated by you. Shenyang was stunned for a moment and then let go of me. His eyes were red. He held my hand, interlacing our fingers. Jiangwan, I love you. At the same time, a cheerful system voice rang out in my mind. Congratulations, host, you have successfully pursued the target, Shenyang, and obtained a reward of 10 million yuan. It turned out that the remaining 10% was the real Shenyang behind the mask. The system extended the time for my fake death escape to half a year later. I was a bit reluctant to leave and Shenyang didn't pretend at all anymore. He was a seemingly loyal puppy on the surface, but behind the scenes, he was scheming, a bit of a green tea, and extremely possessive. When I came back late, Shenyang never urged me. He would just send me a video call and ask me to help him choose some new clothes. Then, in front of me, he would change into them one by one under the high-definition camera that was very close. His distinct abs, firm pecs, and the V-line that disappeared into his gray sweatpants were clearly visible. I heard the sound of myself swallowing. I instantly turned into a fierce tiger and quickly took a taxi home. Then I would see Shenyang, with his black hair half wet and a loose bathrobe hanging on his body, sitting on the living room sofa and asking knowingly, "Sister, why did you come back suddenly? Don't you want to play a little longer? Won't your friends be unhappy that you came back so suddenly?" My blood was boiling. I gritted my teeth and said, "You damned green tea. Oh, is that so? Then sister can avoid falling for this damned green tea's tricks." I snorted and pretended to leave. "Fine, I won't fall for it." Shenyang stood up and walked towards me, pulling me into his arms. "Jiangwan, please keep falling for my tricks, don't leave me for the rest of your life." But what could I do? I was about to leave. Shenyang, late at night, sister, how about I get a plastic surgery or a minor adjustment? Why would you want to do that when you're perfectly fine? Every time I look in the mirror and think that I have the same face as Shinji, I get annoyed. You must have been looking at my face when I wasn't aware and secretly thinking of him in your heart. So annoying, so annoying. I'm so annoyed to have the same face as Shinji. Well, he really doesn't hide anything at all. What a petty person. The system said that the way to leave this world was through a car accident, so on the day of my fake death escape, I tricked Shenyang into going to the south of the city to buy his favorite croissants from that bakery. When I opened the door, I saw Shinji. He was leaning against the wall, smoking with his head down. The company needs to develop new business, and I'm about to be transferred to the UK. I was taken aback. When are you leaving? Next week, probably. Shinji lowered his eyes, looking a bit desolate. I don't know when I'll be back, so I wanted to come and see you one last time before I leave. I looked at Shinji. He was thinner than before, and his short hair made his features look more rugged and mature. After a long while, Jiangwan, I want to hug you one more time, is that okay? I didn't say anything. Shinji smiled. Forget it, it really doesn't seem appropriate either. I stood on tiptoe and hugged his back. He said, Jiangwan, I won't attend your wedding banquet with Shenyang. I nodded. Okay, then have a safe journey. And, thank you, Shinji. I went down to the garage and drove Shenyang's car out. The car drove all the way onto the cross-sea bridge. Then, the brakes suddenly seemed to fail, and the car crashed straight into the guardrail and plunged into the sea in front of my eyes. A flash of white light passed. I closed my eyes and silently said goodbye. This pursuit mission really ended this time. I got 10 million yuan from the system and became a real wealthy woman, but the real estate market has been sluggish recently, so I only bought a large flat. I've been living a very fulfilling life every day. However, recently, I always dream about Shinji and Shenyang. After waking up, I always feel a tightness in my chest and can't catch my breath, so I decided to go on a vacation to Bali. The bed in the hotel was very comfortable, and I rarely didn't have any dreams. But why was it still dark when I woke up? No, my eyes were blindfolded. I sat up in a panic. Something cold touched my ankle, accompanied by the clear clinking of chains. Oh no, was I kidnapped? But that didn't make sense. I didn't show off my wealth either. The dress I was wearing was even bought at the entrance of a supermarket, only 80 yuan each. Awake, I was instantly stunned. This voice, I spoke tremblingly. Shinji, sister, where are the croissants you bought for me? No, That couldn't be possible. I quickly woke up the system that had been silent for a long time. What's going on? System, help me. The system was also stunned. Don't panic, Master. The system will check it out. The system. I found out, because Shinji and Shinyang were too obsessed. After Master's fake death escape, they were selected by the system to be the new pursuers. Congratulations, Master, for being bound to the twin brothers and the fall in love with me system. This system is rated 18+, with a high level of restrictions and great difficulty. Please be prepared to be pursued, Master. What, I'm the one to be pursued? The system chuckled. Don't be afraid, Master. Isn't this fulfilling your wish? I suddenly sat up and dodged Shinji's hand. I was just saying that casually. The system, oh, by the way, I should remind Master that since they know you faked your death to deceive them, they're very angry now. My legs started to go weak, and I was lifted up into the air. There was a faint scent of citrus, which meant it was Shinyang. I clutched his coat tightly and asked nervously, where are you taking me? As soon as I finished speaking, I was put back on the bed. I struggled to sit up and found that the whole bed was actually shaking, and there was no place to hold on. It was as if it was made of water. I immediately became a coward. Shinji, Shinyang, I know I'm sorry to you, but it was all a system mission. I had no choice. Yeah, we forgive you, but sister, you guessed the wrong person just now. The scents of citrus and cedar intertwined in the dark. It felt like I was being surrounded from both sides. Shinyang chuckled, his voice casual. If you guess wrong again, there will be a punishment, the end of the full text.